In this video, I'll be discussing respiration in plants. You might have been wondering, maybe you have seen something like this before, where you have plants of different levels, like this one that you're showing. That's a piece of a stagnant water with some plants growing in it, and some standing plants. You have different types of plants in this type of environment. Or you're passing through a walkway or driveway, and you see plants, trees at both sides uh, of the way. You might be wondering, how do these plants survive? How did they get the stamina, the energy to be able to stand? We've talked about photosynthesis. That photosynthesis is a process whereby they use to manufacture their own food on their own. So when they manufacture their food and they eat the food, yes, let's assume they use the food to nourish themselves. They will grow, they will be green, but they still need energy to sustain themselves and to carry out certain metabolic activities within the body. So you might be wondering, how did they carry out these activities? How are they able to sustain themselves? And this is being done by respiration. Respiration could actually be referred to as a biological process where air moves through, air moves in between the external environment and tissues and cells of plant. That is, air goes in and out. When we have a gaseous exchange, it's actually a continuous activity because it occurs throughout the lifetime of a plant. It's not just during the day or at night. It occurs throughout because it's like life of a plant. It's actually made up of chains of chemical reactions where we have reactions of different substances, the breaking down, and maybe the formation of different substances and chemicals. It involves the breaking down of carbohydrates like glucose molecules with other molecules. That is, they are broken down, and it leads to the breaking down of these molecules, especially glucose, leads to release of energy, and the energy that is released in the process is referred to as adenosine triphosphate, that is popularly referred to as a ATP. Then carbon dioxide and water are also being released in this process. The process actually enables clients to be able to get energy that is required by them to sustain life. The energy that has been able, the plants are able to get from this process is important for the maintenance of activities that take place within the cell, just like growth, reproduction, absorption of nutrients, repair of worn out tissues as examples. Now, let's look at the process of respiration. Respiration do not in plants do not possess certain specialized structure uh, for the organisms to allow respiration to take place. It actually involves, like I mentioned the other time, it involves the diffusion of gases. Oxygen diffuses into the plant and carbon dioxide diffuses out. And this occurs through certain tiny openings in plants. The first one the first type of the openings is stomata. Stomata for plural and stoma for singular. This one maintain presence, these stomata are mainly present on the underside of a leaf. Let's assume this a leaf is present mainly on the other side, underside. You have few ones on the upper side, but most of them are present on the other side. And this is just to protect them from sunlight and dust so that the openings will not be blocked. The openings are, each opening is guided by a bean-shaped pair of cells that is referred to as a guard cells. Guard cells normally controls the opening and the closing of the stomata. So we have a pair of guard cells at the entrance of each, or at the opening of each stomata. Then another one I want you to see, look at this diagram. The upper part of the diagram is the internal structure of a leaf. So if you look towards the hand, at the other hand, at the other hand, you will see the openings. The openings are guarded with stomata. Where you have the openings, they are guarded. The stomata are guarded by guard cells. When the guard cells, when they contract, the stoma is opened, and when they relaxes, the stoma is closed. And so that is the structure of the stoma, how it looks like. Then another opening that is present in plant through which you have the hair diffusing in and out is referred to as lenticels. Lenticels are present on the stem and roots of plants. They're sometimes available on fruits like apple or tomato. So on a stem, when you see openings like the one that you are looking on the screen now, when you see openings like this on a stem, they are lenticels and they are being used for respiration. In roots of plants. If you look at towels, you can see some whitish structure, tiny whitish uh, um, like dots on the roots. Those are examples of those ones are lenticels of on roots. Then you can also see those tiny like tiny dots on the apple fruit there. Those are examples of lenticels, and they are used for respiration. Now, let's look at the stages of respiration in plant. When the oxygen diffuses from outside inside the plant, what happens? So, this is what happens. We have different stages. The first stage is referred to as a glycolysis. You see, when the oxygen diffuses in, it moves in into the cells of the plant, especially whether it diffuses in through the stomata or through the lenticels. So the first stage we have is glycolysis. Glycolysis is also being referred to as Embedder-Meyerhoff Penaz, EMP, and it occurs in the cytoplasm of cells of plants. What happens here? You have the conversion or the breaking down of glucose into two molecules. That is, the glucose that are present in the cell, they are split into two molecules of pyruvic acid. You know, glucose is made up of 6 molecules. So it will be splitted out into two molecules of pyruvic acid, with each one being made up of 3 carbons. Then the next one is oxidative decarboxylation. When we talk about oxidative decarboxylation, it takes place in mitochondria. You see, the uh, the pyruvic acid, they move on into the outer part of mitochondria, and the pyruvic acid now gets converted into acetyl-CoA. This one occurs in the presence of a particular enzyme that is referred to as a pyruvate dehydrogenase. This particular stage is also referred to as link reaction or transition reaction, because it is a stage that links the glycolysis to the next stage, which is a Krebs cycle. Now, the Krebs cycle is also being referred to as the citric acid cycle or the tricarboxylic acid cycle. This one occurs also in the matrix of mitochondria. The acetyl-CoA from the previous stage comes into the Krebs cycle, and you have the conversion or the breaking down of the acetyl-CoA into different carbon compounds. And in the process, that's why it's a cycle. In the process, carbon dioxide is being released, and we also have the generation of energy, adenosine triphosphate, as well as the energy generating compounds, the NADH and NADH2. Then this one now moves to the next stage, which is also the last stage, the oxidative phosphorylation. Oxidative phosphorylation is also being referred to as the electron transport system. It occurs in the inner mitochondria, that is in the inner membrane of mitochondria. all the reduced hydrogen acceptors, you know, hydrogen acceptors like the NADH plus H plus and a FADH2, they form the Krebs cycle. They remove hydrogen and get reoxidized to NAD plus and FAD plus. This is called the terminal oxidation of a NAD plus H plus and a FAD plus, FADH2. Oxygen now acts as the final hydrogen electron acceptor at this stage. So at this stage, you have the formation of water, and you also have most of the energy, the adenosine triphosphate, being generated at this stage. Now let's look at the diagram for better explanation. You can see it's labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. The 1 is the glycolysis. You can see glucose broken down to 2 pyruvate, that is 2 pyruvic acid. In the process, you have the formation of or the release of NADH and ATP. ATP is energy, whereas NADH is energy generating a compound. Then this one moves to the next stage, which is a pyruvate oxidation. At the pyruvate oxidation, you have the pyruvate or the pyruvic acid being broken down to acetyl-CoA. At this time also, you have the NADH and you have carbon dioxide. Now, this acetyl-CoA move to the citric acid cycle. In the citric acid cycle, you have during the breaking down of the compound into breaking down of acetyl-CoA into different or various types of compounds, you have the formation or you have this thing being found. So in the process, energy ATP is being released, carbon dioxide is being released, then we have um, energy the energy generating um, substances or compounds, the NADH and NADH2. Those ones now move into the next stage. That's the oxidative phosphorylation. So at the oxidative phosphorylation, you have the acceptance of these compounds accepting um, hydrogen. When they accept hydrogen, that means oxidation taking place. Then you have the release of a carbon dioxide with oxygen being maybe I would say, like I said the other time, the terminal acceptor of the electron. And in the process or at the end of the respiration or at the end of the cellular activity. The cellular activity, let me remind you here, the cellular activity, because it takes place, all these reactions, chemical reactions take place in the cell, is being referred to as cellular respiration. You have at the end of the day oxygen being generated, carbon dioxide being emitted, as well as water and energy. Now, let's look at the um, Krebs cycle to see. You see, this is how the Krebs cycle looks like. You have, let's take it from one angle, citrates broken down to a keto-glutaric acid, then the glutaric acid broken down to succinyl-CoA, then succinyl-CoA broken down to succinic acid, then the succinic acid broken down to fumarate, then fumarate broken down to malate, and malate broken down to oxaloacetic acid. Now, I want you to look at this one in the process of the conversion of or breaking down from one compound to the other. You have the release of different compounds and conversion of different from one compound to the other. Like for example, let's take it from here. When acetyl-CoA enters, you have between the breaking down of oxaloacetic to citrate, you have CoA being released, and from citrate to keto-glutaric acid, you have carbon dioxide being released, then the conversion of NAD plus to NADH. From alpha-ketoglutaric acid to succinyl-CoA, you have the release of carbon dioxide, at the same time the conversion of NAD plus to NADH. Then from there, you also have the succinic, from the conversion of succinyl CoA to succinic acid, you have you have the conversion of you have the conversion of ADP plus, ADP is adenosine diphosphate. Adenosine diphosphate now react or combine with inorganic phosphate and form ATP, an energy that is released. Then from the succinic acid to fumarate acid, you have the conversion of FAD to FADH2. Then from fumarate to malate, you have the release of water. Then from malate to oxaloacetic acid, we have the conversion of NAD plus to NADH. And so that's how the cycle goes on and on like that before it enters the final or the last stage in the cellular respiration. Now, let's look at the equation for respiration. Look at the equation for respiration here. You see C6H12O6 plus O2 to give CO2 plus H2O plus ATP. ATP is the energy. This is showing glucose reacting together with oxygen and causing a breakdown of carbon dioxide, the release of water, a breakdown into carbon dioxide, water, and the release of energy. Now, if you look at the equation for respiration, you will see that the equation for respiration is the opposite to the equation for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, in photosynthesis, you have carbon dioxide react with oxygen in the presence of solar or light energy to produce glucose, and oxygen is evolved. Now, the major difference between the two is that number one, photosynthesis takes place in only green plants, while respiration takes place in all organisms. So in plants, respiration takes place. Respiration is continuous. It does not require anything, it is continuous. It is continuous. That is what gives the sustainability of or the sustainability of life to organisms. Now, when organisms or when respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen, it is referred to as aerobic respiration. But we have some organisms that can also respire even when oxygen is not available. So that type of respiration is called anaerobic respiration. And the anaerobic respiration is still called a fermentation. It is still referred to as fermentation. It occurs in the absence of oxygen. And what happens is that the glucose, instead of being broken down into pyruvic acid, two pyruvates, as we have it in the presence of oxygen, what we have in this case is uh, you have a partial breaking down of glucose, and that's why we call it partial fermentation. So the product is usually two molecules of ethanol, two molecules of carbon dioxide, and two molecules of energy that are produced. And this anaerobic respiration takes place in unicellular eukaryotes, takes place in prokaryotes, in germinating cells, and a common example that is very common that it takes place in the common one, yeast around us. So these are, examples of um, organisms where you have anaerobic respiration takes place. So I want you to understand here that respiration is important to life. It's important to life. It is important for existence of an organism to take place because what is generated, the energy that is generated during this process is being used for metabolic activities in the body. Thank you for listening.